Hi, I'm Rick Dahl from Perkasie Historical Society. During the summer of 2020, Jim Bergey came back to Perkasie and he gave us a tour of the neighborhood where he grew up in the 1950s. When he was 11 years old, in 1956, he moved from this neighborhood up to the Emmaus area. What you see pictured here is the 1961 Sanborn insurance map. The large building at the top center of the map is the Royal Pants Company. And if you look 2 pink buildings to the right of Royal Pants is the parsonage at 312 East Walnut Street. Also of interest is that Sugar Bush Avenue, which is currently located across the street from the parsonage, was not there at the time when Jim lived in this neighborhood. This is the view looking east on Walnut Street from in front of the parsonage. You see some of the homes located along both sides of the street, and in the distance you see the gas station that is located at the corner of Virginia Avenue and East Walnut Street. And across from the gas station on the right-hand side is the Royal Pants Company. This photo is of the front of the parsonage home. It's currently a private house. And this is the side of the parsonage. And this door along the side was used by the parishioners to go visit the pastor of the church, who had his office just inside the door. And this is the rear of the parsonage, and Jim Bergey will tell you a little bit about this home.
Hi, this is the former parsonage for St. Andrew's Lutheran Church when it was a joint church with the Reformed. And the family that lived here back in the 50s was Reverend and Mrs. Luther Schlenker, and they had 4 children, Priscilla, Christina, Martha, and Jamie. I lived in this neighborhood and I moved away in 1956. I was 11 years old. The 2, Priscilla, Christina, were a few years older than me. The other 2 were younger than I, but we were all playmates here and had a lot of fun at this house.
And the address of the house is
312
East Walnut.
East Walnut. Right.
And the door there's a front door.
The front door goes into the main living room, and the side door here at the time was an entrance to the minister's office.
And you remember going into the minister's office and playing?
And we played. The kids would play with all the paperwork and staplers and anything else that was in their office. And we played a game called Boss of the World. We would take turns sitting at the desk and ordering the others around with our papers. It was a lot of fun back then for a little kid.
This is another view of the front of the parsonage. Looking east, and the building that you see in the house in the distance next to the parsonage is the Myers home at 330 East Walnut Street. This is the garage for the parsonage home, located at the rear of the property. And this building, you can see by the crescent on the door, at one time part of it was used as an outhouse, and the other part of the building might have been used as either a shed or it might have been used as a chicken coop, since it was known that they had chickens on the property at one point in time. And we'll see another view coming up here of the currently used as a shed building, but at one time the outhouse and possible chicken coop. And this is the house next to the parsonage at 330 East Walnut Street, and Jim will tell you a little bit about this property.
It was the home of Monroe and Nellie Myers. Monroe was a huckster. He had a truck and used to go down to Philadelphia. He had a couple routes down there a few days a week. They had a large chicken house in the back. They grew chickens, butchered them here, or whatever you do with chickens. Sold eggs. He had a cornfield behind the house and across the street, and in fall what he would do is sell corn also off of his truck, and neighbors would come And I remember they also used to have a steer. They would get a calf and grow it, and I never knew as a little boy where the steer went to. I don't.
Right.
They took it to a butcher, I guess, or sold it, whatever, when it grew big, and then they would get another calf. And I remember candling eggs in here when I was a little boy, and there was a big walk-in cooler in the garage, and that's about it for this one.
Is the garage still there?
The garage is still there. I don't know what's on the inside.
Your timing was good because it's not going to be there forever.
Oh.
He's going to change this old building. And that
Well, that little one, that was a playhouse for the kids. Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, for his kids, and I think that once, I don't know what was in there. Maybe it looks like a chicken coop.
Yeah.
But the chicken building was large behind there.
And that's still there. And so
What's that?
far, the building that's...
No, this is behind this one.
Oh,
There was another. No, that's gone. That one's way gone. That was huge. It was
There's one over here.
that was a big 2-story building with.
This photo is another view looking east on Walnut Street. The street that you see coming in there off of Walnut is Sugarbush Avenue, and this street, along with the homes, was constructed since Jim moved from the neighborhood. And this is where Mr. Myers had his field that he would grow the vegetables that he would sell down in Philadelphia. And these two buildings are located at the rear of the Myers property. The building on the left-hand side could have been a chicken coop. It was used as a playhouse for the kids when Jim lived in the neighborhood. And the building on the right-hand side is this garage building where Mr. Myers would process and package the eggs. And he also had a refrigerator in there to store them. He would also process and package the chickens that he would sell down in Philadelphia. View from Walnut Street looking back at the Myers garage on the right-hand side, and the red building on the left-hand side was the Eisenhart blacksmith shop. And in back of these two buildings was fields that Mr. Myers used. This is a photo of the Bergey home, and I will let Jim tell you a little bit about this.
For East Walnut Street. My grandfather moved in here, we're guessing somewhere in the early 1920s.
And his name was, their name?
Herbert Eisenhart.
Oh, okay.
And he was a blacksmith, and I believe this was the last operating blacksmith shop in South Perkasie. He passed away in the early 50s, and up until almost to his death, he was still operating. I remember as a little boy in the early 50s, people bringing horses here to get the horseshoes put on. Originally, this house had where all this shrubbery is, there was a wraparound front porch. It came out here, went across the front and down the other side, and actually behind that tree there was another door. That door led into the dining room. The front section here was the living room, and on the other side was something that we used probably as a playroom and a den. And my grandfather's funeral, we actually had the viewing in this living room here, which is, I don't think they do much of that anymore. After my grandfather passed away, my parents purchased the place at the auction, and there was a problem with the foundation on the barn, the blacksmith shop, and my father had the barn raised off the foundation and the repair work done underneath, and then put that back down on it. I remember that the side wall, which we don't, the other end, had the old-fashioned swing-out doors. My dad put in overhead doors there. It had a ground floor. My dad put in concrete floor in there. Behind there, we had a pretty large garden, and then at the end of the property by the creek, we had about 8 apple trees, and there was also a very large Bartlett pear tree in the yard, which I'm sure is gone now also.
And
Just beyond this tree that you can see in the backyard, there was an outhouse, and also not far from it, I remember we had to have the septic tank emptied, and they dug it out to get to it there when I was quite young, before sewage. Right off the back porch, we had a hand pump, and we always had nice cold fresh water outside when you were playing as a kid. They had a tin cup hanging on the pump, and I guess that is all of importance.
Almost everybody had pumps outside the house.
Everyone up and down the street, they all had pumps.
And the yellow building back there was the garage where the Mr. Myers had kept the egg coolers and
right.
Stuff for the egg.
Walk-in cooler back there, and the rear end of it was a big room. Well, not too big. It was bigger when I was little, and that was their processing plant where they would pluck the chickens and clean the eggs and package them for his business.
This is a photo of the west side of the Bergey residence, showing the blacksmith shop at the back of the property. And this was Jim's grandfather's blacksmith shop, Mr. Eisenhart. Another close-up view of Mr. Eisenhart's blacksmith shop, which in Jim's time of living there as a child was the garage for the property. Another view of the west side of the Bergey home, showing the home and showing a little bit of the blacksmith shop towards the back of the property. The next home that we'll look at is this house that you see on the left in this photograph. And this was the Gable residence. And the address is 336 East Walnut Street. And this is a close-up of the Gable residence. And this home was right next to the Bergeys on the east side of the Bergey home. And we'll have Jim tell you a little bit about what he remembers about the Gables.
It belonged to Mr. and Mrs. William Gable. They had two children, William Jr. and a daughter named Margaret. They were quite a bit older than I. They were already grown and out of the house. I don't know what William did. He used to come and visit with his family. Margaret was a librarian, I believe, at Selinsgrove University, and she would come by here often in the summertime and holidays. They had, to the rear of the little barn, that was all apple trees all the way down to the creek. Probably about 30 of them back there. And they also had a big strawberry patch just here past this little sidewalk. Was a large arbor with grapevines on it, a lot of grapes. They grew a lot of cabbage. They made their own sauerkraut. In the summer, out here in the front yard, they would have a stand, especially in fall, with the apples, and they made, I used to help Mr. Gable make apple cider when I was a little boy, and he had an old vehicle. I believe it was possibly a Model A Ford, not much of a body on it, no top, no doors, just one front seat, and in the back was a large tank, and he would dump powder in the tank and fill it up with water, and then it had a gas operated pump, and I would hop on with him, and we would drive back and spray the apple trees, probably with DDT. I wouldn't be surprised back then. And let's see if I know anything. I guess that's about it for this property.
And that's 336 East Walnut.
Right.
Okay, the Gable house.
Gables.
Okay. Next to the Gables is this beautiful brick home that you see pictured, and it was and still is owned by the Herstein family. And the address of this property is 342 East Walnut Street. And we'll have Jim tell you a little bit about the Hersteins.
This is 342 East Walnut Street. I don't remember an awful lot of this one, but it was owned by a family by the name of Herstein. Mr. Herstein was Burgess in Perkasie for quite a few years, and they owned a shoe store up on 7th Street.
Oh, Yeah.
And I remember going there to get all my shoes as a little boy, and I remember the family, but I never had a close enough relationship to have ever been inside the house or know much more about it that I can offer.
So
I did have a son, I think his name was Ray, and I don't know what happened to him.
Okay, 342 East Walnut.
Right.
Herstein House. This home that you see pictured is across Walnut Street from the Herstein home, and it was owned by Arthur and Emma Marles, and it's on the corner of East Walnut and Virginia Avenue. And Mr. Marles worked over at the Royal Pants Company. He had a management position over there. And Jim Bergey remembers that the Marles were one of the first people in the area to have a colored television set. This is a view looking west on East Walnut Street, showing some of the homes that we talked about. The home on the left is the Gable residence. And Jim remembers in the summertime, Perkasie police officer Russell Allner would sometimes park his police car in front of some of these homes, and he would get out of the car and he would lean against the car, and he would try to encourage drivers that were going by to reduce their speed a little bit as they were traveling down East Walnut Street. Next photo is a photo of the Royal Pants Manufacturing Company, which in 1950s was going pretty strong, had a lot of employees, and actually Jim's parents both worked there. His mother worked there sewing pants, and his father worked in the shipping department pressing pants before they were shipped out. This is a view of the west side of the Royal Pants Manufacturing building, which is now Free Will. And Jim remembers the kids riding their bikes around in the parking lot of this building. Now, on the west side of the building, towards the back of the building, Jim remembers in the 1950s, there was a little store back there. The store was mostly for the convenience of the employees of Royal Pants, but Jim remembers going back there, buying maybe like bread, milk, maybe candy, popsicles. This is a view looking west from the Royal Pants Manufacturing Company parking lot, showing the yard area in back of these properties on East Walnut Street. And you can see how much space there is between the homes and the Pleasant Spring Creek. And this is the area where there were fruit trees and fields where they would grow vegetables that they could sell, chicken coops, and where Jim would play when he was a kid. This is a photograph of the H.D. Moyer General Store located at Main and East Walnut Street in South Perkasie. It's across from the Perk. It doesn't look like this anymore. But Jim remembers going down to the Moyer store to buy ice cream. And he said they would have these big tubs of ice cream and they would scoop it out for you. And it was a great place to go on a hot summer day. This next photo that you see is a picture of the South Perkasie Covered Bridge in its original location along South Main Street. Jim remembers going over and playing underneath the bridge. They play in the Pleasant Spring Creek, catch tadpoles. They also ride their bikes back and forth across the bridge. This photo is of the South Perkasie Hotel, or the Perk as we call it. Photo is probably from the 1990s. It looks a little bit different than it did when Jim lived there in the 1950s. The building to the right of the hotel is the hotel livery stable, which was recently torn down to make room for a parking lot. And here's a photo of myself on the left-hand side and Jim on the right, having lunch and a beverage over at the Perk. And it was during the COVID-19 pandemic, and you weren't allowed inside the restaurant, so you had to sit out at tables in the parking lot. So it was a beautiful summer day, and it was a very enjoyable experience. And we'd like to thank Kathy and Chris Klein for sponsoring the Historical Society's Zoom subscription, which allows us to do these presentations. And thanks to Jim Bergey for coming down to Perkasie and spending his day with us so we could learn about what his neighborhood was like in the 1950s. And I also like to thank Ruthie Schubert, one of the residents on East Walnut Street, for her hospitality and for walking along with us on a tour of some of these homes.